It's good to see you this morning. Some of the young people are doing something after services. Monique and Senior kind of in charge of that. And if they would meet up front after services so lights could be arranged, that would be very convenient. In 1907, the movie The Bucket List came out. It's a movie I did not see, but it's a movie that follows two terminally ill men who set out on a road trip to do various things. And it's called The Bucket List because it's a list of things that you do before you kick the bucket. It's a list of a number of things that you would like to do before you die. And on the way, they do such things as they do some race car driving, they do some skydiving, they climb the pyramids, experience an African safari. I thought the idea of having a list of things that you want to do or accomplish, is an intriguing idea. When we look at the Bible, God often is in the lists. There are lists like genealogies. There are lists of the ancestors of Christ. Those are very, very important lists. What they tell you is that God kept His promise. God kept His promise through the ages. There's a list of the heroes of faith in Hebrews 11. That's an important list. That's the type of faith we're going to need to make it to eternal life. That's just not some faith. That's just not a faith on steroids. That's the faith that you need to have to be acceptable with God. Hebrews 11 and verse 6. There's a list of moral attributes, things that you need to add to your faith, like 2 Peter chapter 1 or the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5. There's also various sin lists. Very convenient that God often will take a number of sins and put them in one place where you can kind of see a whole bunch of sins together. You don't have to go around looking for each individual one. You'll find that in the works of the flesh, Galatians 5:19. Romans 1:29 to 32 is another list of sins. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 9 and 10 would be another. Number of those lists have some of the same sins in them, or just rearranged a little bit different. But that's convenient. Here's a list of things that I need to avoid, and they're kind of in one spot. Then we have kind of God at times gives us a list of His attributes. I'm long-suffering, I'm patient, I'm merciful, but by no means leave the guilty unpunished, like Exodus chapter 34. And sometimes you'll find a list of what He's done in the Psalms. Sometimes the psalmist will give a list of it. God did this for us, and God did this for us. And often in the same list you might have, and we didn't do this. We rebelled, but God did this. We rebelled, but God did this. And so a lot of times you'll have a list of here's all the great things that God has done for His people, or in the same list, here's all the acts of ingratitude that His people displayed toward Him. What Israel did wrong. Here's kind of a list. Here's a list of their mistakes. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 is a similar list. They grumbled, they murmured, and so there's the warning, don't do that. Don't behave the same way. Here's what the bucket list was. It's witness something truly majestic, help a complete stranger, laugh till you cry, drive a Shelby Mustang, kiss the most beautiful girl in the world, go skydiving, and various places that you would like to visit. I would like you to consider a different type of list. Because the list that we just looked at, you may have no interest in seeing the pyramids before you die, or Stonehenge. You may say, that doesn't interest me. You may say, I've already got the most beautiful girl. I don't need to go and looking for any other. I'm already kissing the most beautiful girl in the world. You may or may not want to drive a Shelby Mustang. Maybe it's something else you would like to drive. I went down and saw my mom on Friday, and my mom hates to fly, but she informed me she wants to go into outer space. And I did that. She wouldn't even sit at the dinner table with us. She sat in the other room. She was wanting to watch the space shuttle launch. And the doctor I had growing up, his son, is who's on that lot. She's an astronaut now, so she really wanted to watch that. But me and my stepdad were just shaking her head as far as how this woman doesn't like to get an airplane. How in the world is she going to enjoy space or a rocket ride? I mean, it's not like you get on and you say, I don't want to get off. And you get on and you're going. But so everyone kind of has their own list of things that they would like to do. I like that God basically gives us a list of things that no matter what you do, you will enjoy it. There's God's list, or one of His lists. That's Galatians 5. That's the fruit of the Spirit. I think there's a lot of wisdom behind that list. And the wisdom of that list is no matter what you do, as long as you have those qualities, no matter what you do, you would get the most out of it. If you have those qualities in your life, you will enjoy the pyramids. But if you go to the same context and read a little earlier, Galatians 5 verse 19, and you find such things like strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, dissensions, factions, envyings. If you've got that list, you could go to the pyramids and have a miserable time. Or Stonehenge. Whether or not you drive a Shelby Mustang or not, whether you're in the car or just watching it going on the track, if you've got the list before you, you're going to enjoy driving it, or you'll enjoy just watching it go around the track. Or you may really enjoy the 30 years it took you to save up for the Shelby Mustang, if you've got that list. Because the reality is that most of our lives will not be at the pyramids, or Stonehenge, or witnessing some marvelous experience. Most of your life is going to be at home, at work, doing something that might be considered rather ordinary, routine, and mundane. Most of our lives operate within working, sleeping, eating, things like that. If you've got this list, not only will you enjoy the big highlights of your life, like I got to go and see this, but you'll actually get to enjoy the journey. I think the mistake of having a list of things that you want to do just before you die, and concentrating on that list, is that most of your life, that excludes most of your life. And I really feel sorry for people that they're looking at something, I can't wait until I get to do this, and they don't enjoy the process. They do not enjoy the process of getting there. I read a book last night of a man, him and his wife needed a new freezer. And she was saving up for it. Bit by bit, she was saving up for it, like $50 a month or whatever she was saving up for it. And they had money in the bank that they could buy it now. And he says, why don't we just go out and buy it now? And she says, no. I like the process. I like the process of actually saving up $50 a month and then actually going down with the reward of buying it with what I saved up month by month. I enjoy the process of getting there. And I think a lot of times our culture's kind of lost that. We want everything really instant, and we no longer enjoy the process of getting to the goal. If you've got this list in your life, first of all, it will work for everyone. It will work wherever you're at. And it will work whatever you do. Whatever you do, that work will live. That list will work for you. Whatever you do. Wherever you go. Wherever you live. Wherever you're at in your time of life. And I think that's the wisdom of God's, of that particular list. What you see is up to you. You don't have to see the pyramids, but it's not a sin to see the pyramids. You can see the pyramids if you want. But you may not want to do that. You may want to see something else. Here are qualities that will enable you to actually enjoy the journey. The plane ride there. Check your baggage in and out. The actual time you have at the pyramid is probably short compared to all the effort it took to get there. It's a shame not to enjoy the process getting there, because that's where most of your life is lived. These things help you to enjoy the amazing and ordinary.
if you got the fruit of the Spirit, you'll enjoy the process of cleaning the house, cleaning the bathroom, driving to work, or school, or just the process of learning and so you can go out and get that career now. And they work for everyone, and they work everywhere. That's a universal sort of lens. We also need to remember, and one of the things I think the downsides of a list of things to do before you die, which I think is a good idea, but one of the things to have on the list of things to do before you die is the things that you need to stop doing. Well, I think the bucket list, I like the idea, but I think it misses something. There's nothing on the list as far as what do I need to stop doing. Because there are things that we need to stop doing. There are things that we need to get rid of. We need to get rid of impure thoughts. We need to get a handle on our lusts and our fantasy life. And we need to get a handle on idolatry and maybe corrupt speech and enmity and strife and jealousy. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice that one of the goals of life that before I die, I want to get my jealousy and envy under control. That's one of the things I want to do before I die. Get to the point that I'm not jealous or envious of individuals. And I've got my anger under control. Or malice. I don't have a desire to injure people. I don't hold grudges anymore. Or dissensions and factions are selfish ambition. I've removed myself from the center of the picture. And whatever addictions I have, maybe it's drunkenness or maybe it's something else, but I've got the addictions under control. And basically the whole list could be summed up as selfishness. Selfishness. We talked in class a little bit about Joseph. I'm amazed by Joseph because one of the neat things about Joseph in the Bible is that he always holds on to God even though things just collapse around him. He gets sold into slavery, still holding on to God. He's a slave now. He's in Potiphar's household. He's falsely accused. He's sent off to prison. He's still holding on to God. In prison, he interprets the dreams of the cupbearer and the chief baker. He's forgotten for 2 years. They don't remember him. He's not released out of prison. 2 more years go by in prison. He still holds on to God. He gets out of prison. He's elevated. He's the second most powerful person in Egypt. He still holds on to God. What Joseph is doing is bearing his cross. My brothers don't like me, I bear my cross though. I'm sold into slavery, I bear my cross. Potiphar's wife falsely accused me, I bear my cross. I'm in prison, I bear my cross. I'm forgotten, I bear my cross. I'm elevated and all of a sudden I have an instant prosperity and power, I bear my cross. My brothers show up. My brothers show up. I forgive them. I bear my cross. Because Joseph had become what Joseph became. All those events made him the man that he was. And he realizes that. And of all the blessings, all the great things that came from that. So, don't resent the hardships in your life and the difficulties in your life and the things that kind of force you to get on your knees and pray and things like that, because that's bearing your cross. That's part of that process. And it enables you to remove stuff, to get rid of stuff. I think on a list, if you're going to make a list of good decisions and good choices and things that you've accomplished, on that list needs to be a list of things that you overcame. I used to have an anger problem. I used to have a problem with jealousy. I used to have this addiction, that addiction, and it's gone. It's gone. Yes, it resurfaces itself in thought. In thought, it does. But indeed, I've been able to keep it, at least for the most part, from breaking out into the deed form. Yes, anger thoughts surface, but I no longer yell, or break things, or throw things. I want to look at Romans chapter 1, 14 through 50. Here's the way that I would look at the list. As I'm putting together a list, or if you were putting together a list, Paul said to the Romans, I am under obligation to Greeks and the barbarians, both to the wise and to the foolish. Thus, for my part, I'm eager to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome. And I don't, maybe the word obligation is a word that people might not like I owe someone, but don't think of the word owe in a negative sense. But think of it in a very positive sense of, here's something I want to fulfill. Here's a duty, here's an obligation that I want to fulfill to this person. Not just like, well, I owe them, I don't like owing them. It's not that. It's something different than that. And to me, a list of things to do before I die would be more of a list of very important obligations that I want to fulfill to people. Some of them will mean much to me. But it's also a list of things that I want to do and fulfill before I leave this planet. Because once I leave this planet, I will not be able to finish anything else on that list. I won't be able to fulfill any more of those obligations. In the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a couple passages I want to look at there. First of all, this is not just a lesson for people who are old. And so the young people need to make sure it's like, well, this is an old people's lesson. Like old people's food, or whatever, or something like that. No. Because if they take you a while to finish this list, I think there's a mistake of, okay, I'm diagnosed with something. I've got a limited amount of time to live. That's the type of book they get on my list. Well, it may be too late. You may not have the help at that point. That may be too late. This is a list that you need to have really early on in life. First of all, there's no guarantee you're ever going to get old. There's no guarantee you're going to get to old age. Some young people never do. And so in Ecclesiastes chapter 11, and in verse 9, it says, verse 10, remove vexation from your heart, put away pain from your body, because childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. And chapter 12, verse 1, remember also your Creator in the days of youth, before the evil days come. The dark times come, which chapter 11 says there's going to be many of them. Many. Again, don't think you're being picked on if you feel that in your life you have one wave of trials and adversity after another. Ecclesiastes has already said the dark days will be many. Will be many. There's going to be many challenges in life. There's going to be many obstacles. And so, you need to get your head on straight when you're young. You need to get rid of the anger and the bitterness and the self-pity and all that and the selfishness. And you need to focus on God, because life is going to go by really, really quick. And when you get old, you're not going to be able to do many of the things that you can do now. So now's the time of strength. Now's the time of health. Now's the time of flexibility. And then chapter 9 tells us in verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, verily do with all your might. For there's no activity, there's no planning, there's no knowledge or wisdom in Sheol where you're going. Once you die, that can really cut you off from being able to cross out or finish anything on your list. Hebrews 9:27. Inasmuch as it's appointed for men to die once, and after this comes judgment. Death will end the ability to express my gratitude and love to people. That's what chapter 9, verse 6 says. It says, indeed, their love, their hate, and their zeal have already perished. What that means is that no longer can you express love to anyone else in this life. You can't tell anyone from beyond the grave that you love them. You can't give anyone a hug anymore. You can't give any sort of imparting lesson from the next life. You're cut off. No longer can you express your love to people here that are left behind. And, now typically a bucket list is a list for people who are dying, or they know they're dying. I've got limited time. I've got this diagnosis. The truth is we're all dying. We all have a terminal illness. Some of us are dying slower than others. That's about the only difference. Some of us might be more on the speed track of dying. Or here's another way of looking at it. Like seasons. You got spring, summer, winter, and fall. I'm probably on the verge of fall right now. Zach, maybe more at the end of spring, moving into the summer of his life. But his dad is probably moving into fall of his life. So you're somewhere on that calendar, or the months of the year. The little kids here may be in February. They're in the February of their life. Other people here may be in the November of their life, or December of your life. I think I'm probably in kind of the August of my life. Maybe the end of the August of my life. Maybe gradually heading towards September. The leaves are changing. The leaves are changing. So, I'm not in July anymore. I'm not in July. And I think if you put your life in that scenario, I think you realize how much has passed. And what you have left. I'm like a December, November, October, September. 8 months already gone. And I think if you look at it that way, then I think there's a sense of urgency of, time is going by. The high school kids here, maybe in the month of May. But you might think, man, January's gone, February's gone, March is gone, April's gone. Those months are already gone in my life. I'm in May already. I'm in May already of my life. And I'm only in high school. So a good portion's already passed by. Okay, so obligations. What sort of things would be on the list? Well, here's some things that would be on a sample list or a suggested list. And this is more categories. First of all, seems like there are certain obligations that I need to fulfill in appearance. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. Obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor father and mother. May I put those verses together, though, and suggest to you that the obedience in the passage is just not obedience. May I suggest, because you can obey with a bad attitude. One of the things that I owe my parents would be that, yes, obey, but I need to obey in an honoring way. Grudging obedience is not appreciated. No one likes that. Okay, if I have to. It shouldn't be if I have to. Rather, it should be I want to. I should want to make parenting easier for them to parent me. I want their parenting me to be a joy. And I want to render obedience to them in a way that honors them, in a way that honors God. Sure, Mom, I'll do that. Sure, Dad, you betcha. Be right on top of that. Glad to do that. Anything I can do for you. We need to rake the leaves this weekend. I'm not going to be able to rake the leaves with you guys forever. One of these days, I'm going to have my own family. I'm going to look back and say, those days that I have a raking the leaves with Mom and Dad, they were short-lived. I see where I'm at now in my life. This is not going to last forever. And so, yes, that fall day of being with Dad or Mom or doing that, I will cherish that memory forever. Those were wonderful times. Mark chapter 7, verses 9 through 13 would be that I need to seek to take care of them in their old age. Now, that does not necessarily mean that they live with you, because they may not want to live with you. You may say, Mom and Dad, we got an apartment here, kind of a room in the house here. You have your own bathroom and stuff like that, and they may say thanks, but no thanks. We don't want to live with you. We love you, but no, we got our own place. But my point on the list is that I think you should do whatever you can to make sure that if they need to live with you, that's available. That you can offer them. That would work. That is that they will be taken care of. That they will be taken care of. I will see to that. And at least in Mark chapter 7, Jesus infers there that part of the obedience to the command, honor your father and your mother, in verse 11, was to take care of them financially if they needed that. To take care of them in their old age. To make sure they were provided for. Even if they're somewhere else, even if they're in a home or assisted living or whatever, I think one of the obligations I have a son is to say, Mom and Dad, that's where you're going. Okay, fine. You're welcome to live with me, but that's where you want to go, good. But if I go in there and if it smells in there, it's not going to be okay with me. And I'm pulling you out, or whatever. I'm going to go in and visit you. I'm going to go and visit you, and if I don't think they're taking care of you, they're going to have to answer to me. I would think that would be, that's one of the last obligations that you would fulfill to a parent. As they're being taken care of, I want to make sure that wherever you are, that's clean. And that people are good to you. And that you're being fed and things like that. But that's one of the last obligations to a parent. I need to remember the family stories. Especially, I think I have an obligation to remember the conversion story. I need to remember the circumstances of how my mom and dad came to the gospel. I think that's an important story. Now, you might not be able to remember all the family stories, but I think that's an important one. Who was the first one to become a Christian in this family? Who does it go back to? What was the story that went along with their conversion? How did they come in contact with the truth? I think as a child, I have an obligation to remember that story and write it down or type it in and have it saved, that gets passed on to the grandkids. And as a child, the obligation also would be that I need to remain faithful. I think of 3 John 4. Now, the context there of 3 John 4 is not parents and children. It's more of one who would view himself as kind of a spiritual parent, like John would to his converts. But he said, I have no greater joy than this, to hear of my children walking in the truth. That's the primary application. But I know a lot of parents here can identify with the sentiment of, as a parent, one of the things that makes me sleep well at night or rest easy as a parent is to know that my kids are saved. In a sense, I have no greater joy than that my kids are faithful Christians. That's the greatest joy, that my kids are going to heaven. Whatever else they accomplish beyond that is good. But that's the most important thing, that they are faithful Christians. I owe them that. I owe them that they can rest easy, they can sleep well at night. As they move into their old age, as they depart this earth, that they will know I will see my son again. They will know I will see my daughter again, as they are faithful to God. We will all be together one day, once again. A spouse. Number one obligation, I think, is I owe them a happy spouse. No, that doesn't mean I'm happy every minute of the day. That doesn't mean that I don't ever struggle with things and stuff like that. But I think what I mean by that is the overall mood, my overall demeanor would be happy. Ecclesiastes 9:10. Verse 9. Ecclesiastes 9:9, it should be, enjoy life with the woman whom you love. I think that denotes a general demeanor of happiness. They signed up with me. They said yes to my proposal. I owe them, in a good sense, that they are married to someone who, overall, is a happy person. And I owe them that. And I fulfill my vows. I remain faithful to God. I listen carefully to their hopes and dreams. Now, I may not be able to fulfill all their hopes. We may never get to Stonehenge, or whatever it may be, okay? But I think I owe them listening carefully to the things that they would really like to do, and at least seeking to make some of those things come true. At least some of those things get to come true. And I think that would be on your list. I began to make a list, and it might be little odd things come up on the list. It finally dawned on me. I was up on the property a while back, and my dad years ago had bought me a 30-30, Winchester 30-30, and I still have it. And it finally dawned on me, one thing I owe to my father is I need to kill a deer with that rifle, that particular rifle. That's one last thing I need to fulfill to my father before I die. I don't know, that might sound quirky or strange, but it dawned on me, that meant a lot to him. That meant a lot to him, to buying me that, and I owe that to him. Probably one thing I owe to Cindy is we need one day surfing along the California coast one summer. That's one thing probably an endless summer. Endless summer of surfing, or maybe a year. An endless year where you go around the world and you surf all year, and so it's the endless summer. But something like that. I thought, one thing. You can't make everyone's dreams come true, but you think like, maybe here's something I can do. Or I'll work towards that. I'll work to that, try to get that sort of situation. Ecclesiastes 5, verse 4. When you make a vow to God, do not be like in payment where he that makes stones and lighten fools. Pay what you vow. Do not say to the princess of God that it was a mistake. Now, I think of that when people get divorced. Well, we were too young when we got married. Oh, don't say it was a mistake. Right? Because that's what you did when you married. You made a vow. You made a vow. And it might be good to go back if you still have those vows. I know typically here, anyone I married, I still got a copy of your your service. So I would have your vows. There you go. That's what you promised. You ought to look and see what you promised. Have you been late in fulfilling any of that? Have you been negligent? No, you made that promise to God. And then, have you paid it? Are you fulfilling that obligation? Siblings. I owe something to my brothers and sisters. I think you do. I think you owe your example to them. I think you owe them keeping the family close, especially after the parents die. Who's going to keep the family close after mom and dad are gone? And you know what else I think you owe to your brother and sister? You owe them that you bring up your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and they bring up their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and at the family reunion, all the cousins know God. Wouldn't that be a great thing? How many family reunions do many of us go to now that you're cringing, you leave early, because you got a mix. You got a mix of Christians and unbelievers, or maybe you're the only Christian there. Wouldn't it be nice if your kids said, we remember all the family reunions our parents went to, first generation Christians. And we remember how they agonized over the souls of their parents or their brothers or their sisters. And we remember that really was difficult for them. And you know what? We go to our kids, that we teach them about God. And the kids say, we go to our parents. We go to our parents and we obey the truth. And so when we get together now at Thanksgiving or Christmas or a reunion, everyone's a child of God. And all the cousins are Christians. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't that be a great goal to have? Wouldn't that be edifying and encouraging when all the cousins are children of God? What do you owe yourself? Number one, you need to save yourself. Acts 2, verse 40. Save yourselves from this perverse generation. I think that's the number one thing you owe yourself in this life. Even before you see parents or Stonehenge or Rome or whatever you really like to see, the thing you owe yourself before that is, I need to save myself. And beyond that, you know what you owe yourself? Let's beat that sin. That, as the Hebrew writer said, that sin that besets us. In that context, I think it was unbelief. Let's lay aside every encumbrance. We may be 40 years old and we may still have a weight on our foot. Maybe it's some sort of addiction. Maybe it's anger. For years it's been anger. Anger's been that weight you've been pulling along. Wouldn't it be nice? You know what you owe yourself? You owe yourself the last year that I lived on the earth. The last year I lived on the earth. Let's say if you've been addicted to drinking all your life. The last year of my life was alcohol-free. The last year of my life was anger-free. That is, I didn't blow up. Yeah, it surfaced now and then. The temptation was there. But I never allowed it to break out in a act. The last year of my life, I beat it. I beat it. I think you owe that to yourself. Particularly if you've had something that you've been dragging along for year after year after year. I think you owe that to yourself. I beat it. I lived 1 year without it. I think that'd be a nice goal. That might be something to think about 2009. Let's live that year without the outward deal, physical manifestation of that sin. I know it'll still pop up in my head. I know that. But it's not going to break out into a deed this year or an act this year. How are you without giving? I'm going to take care of my soul. I'm going to book my eternal vacation. Don't you owe that to yourself? I'm booking heaven. I'm booking heaven this year. I've got it all reserved. Because that's where I want to go. That's where I want to go when this life is over. I don't want to go to the other place because I've had a little sampling of what that's like here. And it hasn't been any fun. You know, I've experienced estrangement. I've experienced alienation. I've experienced some weeping and gnashing of teeth in this life, in a limited sense. I don't want that going on forever. And then how? Just some thoughts. You need to have a strategy. If there's something that you haven't been able to overcome, you need to have a strategy. You need to accept the fact that that sin is never delivered in its life. That sin's a liar. Promise, 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 and it never delivers. It never shows up. The package never arrives. And that temptation's always a lie. It's been lying to me for 30, 40 years. I have needs only God can meet. All I have to do is beat it today. There's always a way out, 1 Corinthians 10:13. And my desires are not too strong, my desires are too weak. I need to have a stronger desire for heaven and righteousness and holiness. Now that's a sample list of maybe how. But you know why you need to come up with a how? You know the urgency of that? The urgency of the how is not only your own salvation, but it's the salvation of people coming after you, of a young man or a young woman or your son or your daughter or your grandson, your granddaughter says, Grandpa, Dad, how do you beat this? And if it's like, I don't know, because I've never beat it. We've got to have a better answer than that. We've got to have, here's the strategy. Here's the strategy. Here's the strategy that's enabled me to get on top of that, and I think the same strategy will work for you. You've got to have a strategy. Maybe there's some extra motivation to finally beat whatever you're struggling with, because at least you want your kids and grandkids to be able to have someone who has the answer. Does someone have the answer to how you beat this? A practical answer. The lost. On my list might be here some places I want to evangelize. Maybe your list might be I want to talk to everyone within a mile of my neighborhood. I'm going to leave something or talk to somebody or just leave something on the door of everyone who lives within a mile of my neighborhood. You know, whatever it be. You can choose your own thing there, but it may be here's some places I want to evangelize. And I need to think of a fresh approach to reach that friend that needs saving. We all have friends that need saving. Good friends. Good friends that need saving. You know, I'm gonna give one last effort, or I'm gonna really try to work on that person. That person meant a lot to me. Maybe they helped me out years ago. That person really helped me through high school or whatever. They were a good friend. I owe it to them. I owe it to them. At least someone tells them about eternal life. I need to get some good material into their hands. Maybe on that list might be a list of people, good family friends, just people who have meant a lot to you in life, but are not saved. And one last shot. One more attempt. And I think to us, you also know obligation right down why you believe. Especially if they're a good friend. Write down your thoughts. Here's what I believe. Here's what I believe Mom is true. Jesus is the Christ. Here's what I believe this. And give it to them. Here are my thoughts. Here's what I've learned in my life. They might be more impressed by that than a tract that some stranger wrote. The tract you wrote. And the tract you wrote to your friend was why you believe. What's made an impression upon you from the Scriptures. To your children. Write down a list of vital lessons that I need to impart to them before you leave. What are the vital lessons? What's the final curriculum before you leave? What are the unsaid things that you want to say? So what's going to be on that list? You might want to write some letters to your kids. A letter that they would open upon your death. Letters about your life. Lessons that you learned. Things that you prayed for. That is, each one of the children will get a specific letter addressed to them. From their mom, from their dad. And that list would include the happiness they gave you. And your desires for their future. And what you prayed for them. And the gifts and talents that you see them having. And maybe the times that God delivered you. Part of that letter might be, here's the history of your father's life. Here's kind of a history of your dad's life. And here's the history of the times that God came through for your father, and when he was single, and then when he was married to your mother. And here's all the times that God delivered him. And here's all the promises that God has kept to your dad. I think that would make an impressive letter to a child after you leave. Pretty hard to turn down God when your father and mother has talked about all that God has done for them. And then my thank you to God. He has to be on the list. I need to appreciate His grace. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10 says, I labored more abundantly than them all. And finally, maybe my primary obligation to God is being useful to Him. This passage. Therefore, if a man cleanses himself from these things, he'll be a vessel for honor, sanctified, useful to the master, prepared for every good work. Maybe that might be my main obligation to God, is to be useful for His kingdom. So He can use me to reach out to others and save others. I want to be useful to Him. As we close, here's the invitation. To me, hear the gospel as we go through here, believe, repent, confess, baptize. Listen to the gospel means you hear it. You give it a fair hearing. You really listen to it. Believe means you stop resisting the obvious. That's what faith means. Faith means you accept the obvious. Repent and rebellion. That's what repentance means. Surrender. Lay down your arms. Admit God is right. That's repentance. You end the rebellion against God. Confession. You admit reality. Jesus is the Christ. There is a God. That's what confession is. You just admit what reality is. He is the Son of God and I'm a sinner. And I need saving. That's confession. Baptism, you simply trust His way of saving you. And being faithful means you never cease being grateful. That's what faithfulness is always about. Every day you appreciate God's grace. Whatever your need is. The first thing on your list needs to be, I need to be a Christian before I go any farther. And come forward this morning as we stand and sing.